Howdy, guys. Attorney Walter Hnot. We're going to be going through essentially what changes to expect with the Social Security Administration going into March of 2023. We're going to go through a lot of topics. We're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about retirement, disability benefits, and survivors benefits, all kind of coupled together. Now, in this video, we will specifically answer what updates and changes in a news format style that are coming up for the SSA. And the thing I want you to focus on are the questions you have, because I'll be answering a couple of those questions directly in the chat section or verbally from what I can read from the chat section. This video is live. Now, let's go through the basic details before we get started with the video. Please remember, and this is crucial, that you like and subscribe. Indeed, it even has a light, boop, right there. Now, with that said, also, if you could leave 5-star reviews, that would be super dupe. That's super important to me. Now, SSI persons in the 54 years and under category will find it harder to find attorneys to represent them going into March of 2023 for their hearings. This means that they will be facing an attorney in the hearing, known as the administrative law judge, or put another way, the disability judge. And thereafter, upon denial, they face the uphill battle of going to appeals counsel, in which case SSI-specific people will have a hard time finding somebody to represent them if they're under 54 years old. A group of attorneys who are appellate judges are also deciding their fate at appeals counsel. So at pretty much every level of OHO, the ALJ hearing level and appeals counsel, they face attorneys that represent in some manner or form opposing counsel. It's not the traditional opposing counsel that you see on TV, but it's still the judges asking questions from kind of that analytical standpoint of, do they oppose this claim? What's good? What's bad? And then also having to take on the SSA side and reviewing it. They say it's neutral, but we all know how that's been going. Number two, SSI recipients are going through a CDR in general, basically, the issue is they'll find it very unlikely to obtain attorneys to represent them. And this is SSI people, not SSI, SSDI, just SSI people. The way it works is people opt to keep their benefits when they go through a CDR and they're trying to take away their benefits. And the first hearing the judge, basically will have after they've had 2 denials. So somebody's going through a CDR, they're going to lose their benefits. They opt to retain their benefits. They get a denial, they get another denial, and then they go to the administrative law judge. The first thing that judge will do is they will go ahead and cut off their benefits at that point if they seek to go find some attorney to represent them. And the thing is, basically, SSI people are going to have an extremely difficult finding attorneys to represent them going forward, for the sole purpose and issue of, in this case, there's not enough months that are built up and the SSI amount is not enough. And what's happening is disability attorneys are pulling away from representing SSI people in an even larger percentage because essentially with the massive increases from all of this inflation, it costs more to hire people, retain people, pay business expenses, etc. So kind of the chop block for a lot of claims that are coming, and asking for representation are going to be SSI people. And these CDR people where they're losing their benefits, these particular individuals, when the ALJ takes away, their benefits and says, okay, well, we're gonna go ahead. If you want to get an attorney, if they go to a hearing and they say, look, I want to get an attorney, I want somebody to represent me. What happens is the judge will pull back their benefits. It'll take about 3 to 4 months for them to schedule another hearing. And during that 3 to 4 months, that SSI recipient will have to go ahead and find an attorney to represent them through the continuing disability review. The problem with this is that even if you take the 3 to 4 months that it takes to go ahead and, get the new hearing set up, and then another 3 to 4 months for the judge to make a decision on the claim, that's only 6, 7, 8-ish maybe months of potential back pay. And at the current SSI rate and at the horrific amount of inflation that disability attorneys are facing, most disability attorneys are not going to be interested, which means that most CDRs for SSI people going forward will de facto be unrepresented. SSDI people, traditional disability recipients, Title II people, will still be able to get attorneys to represent them through this. Now, number 3, in-person video teleconference and telephonic hearing. So there's 3 main ways to have a hearing, okay? There's the in-person, the video teleconference, and the telephonic hearings, right? So in-person means you physically go to the administrative law judge hearing. Video teleconference means that you sit there with your phone shows you, and you can see the judge and things like that, and you talk into your phone. And then there's telephonic hearings where you do them by phone, right? There's no video, it's just by phone. People have been asking me for an update on this because they saw the Disability Digest do a video on it. So as a practicing disability attorney who does hearings every single week, in-person hearings are becoming kind of an extreme rarity in comparison to the pre-pandemic amounts. Video teleconference hearings are popular because they allow the judge to visually see essentially the body motions of the individual and what they're doing and what's going on, etc. Now, the bottom line, though, is this. Judges, when they can see you, can gauge a lot of different factors. They can gauge essentially what your body's doing. They can gauge, the emotional context of what's happening. They can gauge how your body is moving in a chair, all kinds of stuff. Whereas with just telephonic, they have to go by essentially your voice. So let's go through that a little bit. Disability Digest did a simple answer on the video. And what they said was, look, do video teleconference. It's a great option because the judge gets to see you and see your impairments and see how impaired you are. That is a quick answer. Of course, I always support Disability Digest. He's not a practicing attorney, but he creates basically a pool of information for people to tag into. Here's a much more involved answer to that specific situation. So when it comes to basically video teleconference versus in-person hearings, you have to keep in mind a lot of things. There's a lot. All right. So when a judge goes to gauge whether or not you are a truthful person, right? And the record contains doctor's notes that have specific maximum efforts in taking, essentially tests and being medication compliant and not having any silver bullets that could kill your claim, kind of like illegal drugs, criminal activity, or alcohol abuse. The judge is going to look at you very closely and assess, essentially, are you being genuine? Do they feel like there's any disingenuous information, action on behalf of you, the person? So what you have to realize is that historically, back in the day, the SSA, Social Security Administration, used to have video telephonic hearings where you'd have to link into a specific IP address. You would have a 360 pan tilt roto camera, and that's how they would do them. Now, as things evolve with COVID, now people are allowed to use their phone and things like that. But the judge used to be able to go ahead and zoom in on the person, move the camera around, and things like that. Now, in reality, the judges almost never use those functions to pan, tilt, roto, to zoom in, all that stuff. They just didn't use them. So the bottom line is that what we're talking about when it comes to giving essentially the judge a good look, you've got to be careful because the judge is looking for anything that can be used to show that you are not the disabled person that which you claim you are. Oh, wow. So Southern Angel, $5 donation. Thank you. Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. We have some big videos today. So Southern Angel, that's absolutely incredible. Wow. Susie Q42, $10 donation. That's super big. That's super big. That's amazing. I'm so glad these videos have helped so many people. And it's just really great. So the bottom line with this whole thing is that people think inherently that they're great actors. People think inherently that they can act well in front of the administrative law judge. Most people can't. Okay. And let me give you an example. When you watch a movie and you're like, oh, I really like that actor. And then you watch another movie and you're like, I hate that actor. You're dealing with that problem. Does the judge think you are the person you are claiming that you are? Does the judge feel that you visually are representing what they traditionally see with somebody with those impairments? You're starting to see how much more complex this is getting. So everybody thinks they are ready for the questions that the judge will ask, right? Nearly all of you guys never really reach 50% preparedness that would give you enough experience to have a realistic feeling of security while you're sitting in that chair and talking to the judge. And that's a high standard. So people being like, I'm 100% prepared. That's impossible. That's impossible. Like I could be 100% prepared for a disability hearing, but there's no way you would have the knowledge base, the terms, the skill, the timeline, knowing the months, the days. There's no way you're ever going to be that prepared. Now, here is an example of some questions that you basically might have to answer on the spot, immediately, right on the spot with the administrative law judge. And I think what's important here is you have to keep in the back of your head, okay, I have to answer these questions, right? I've got to answer these questions, but when I answer them, okay, they have to be so that I seem truthful, direct, honest, so that I don't feel like I'm reaching for things, so I don't feel like my eyes are all over the place and my knee doesn't start going up and down and having these hyper quick reflexes and things like that. These are questions where you've got to act and be the disabled person at which you claim you are. Question number 1. Do your impairments limit your ability to take criticism and formulate corrective actions to better complete work objectives for simple jobs in the future? Did your brain take a moment there? Because it couldn't. If you were in the hearing, there's no vacations. You got to answer it. Next one, question 2. Do you have difficulty with at-home tasks like cooking, cleaning, laundry, and paying bills? Remember, in order to answer that, you've got to split it up into each one and explain why each one of those categories is difficult for you to do. Number 3, when getting ready for the next day, how do you prepare yourself to be successful? That's a trick question. All of a sudden, the judge has asked you a question where they're saying, okay. So you're preparing yourself to be successful. Somewhere in there, you have to define what being successful is, because successful for most people is getting ready to go to work. And you're there to prove that you, for the most part, can't do a full-time job. Okay. Next one, question 4. When did each of your impairments begin by date? And when did each of your impairments become severe by date and event? All of a sudden now the judge is looking at you. You're looking at the judge. You're either physically in front of the judge or it's video teleconference. The judge is staring at you. What's your brain doing? It's got to make a timeline. It's got to boop, 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 right? And then when you talk about the severity, when those impairments became severe, you've got to have events. There was a car accident. There was a situation where you were, abused. There was a situation where, somebody broke into your house. You've got to be able to know dates and what happened. Remember how we talked about at least 50% ready. Probably not even going to achieve that. Now you're starting to feel that I don't have an answer for that. I don't know how to answer that. What am I going to say? Question number 5. When treating for your impairments, were there any medical actions that were suggested that you did not opt into, which you are now considering? Think about your entire medical timeline over the past 3 years. Take a moment. Think about it. Now you have to explain to the judge what's going on with that. Okay? And you're probably going to misstep somewhere in there. You're going to say, well, I could mean this, Your Honor. I could mean that, Your Honor. Well, and then all of a sudden, you are shaken up. And once you're shaken up, the judge can go ahead. And there's 2 types of judges when it comes to this stuff. Judge number 1 will give you the space to answer. Judge number 2 will follow it up with a question to redirect you and direct you more specifically to what they want. But the judges that redirect, they're usually more aggressive getting to specifics. And if you screwed up previously in your testimony, you said something that didn't line up with the record, the judge is going to be more aggressive towards you to see if they can get you to be shaken up and then deliver information that is not consistent with the record twice. They get you twice, they've got you. Okay. All right. Now, all of these questions came from real hearings in their variations. Okay. How secure do you feel that you are figuring them out and that your face is showing how disabled you are while doing these questions while the judge is staring at you? Okay. Look, here's my take on it. Take it or leave it. That's totally fine. I am the person that normally sits next to you or is present during the hearing, whether video telephonic or just telephonic, right? I could be wrong. I'm probably not, because I'm one of the more experienced people in this field when it comes to doing this stuff. So out of all the channels that are out there, this is the person who literally sits next to you. Okay. And once again, I just want to say I do support all those non-attorneys that have their YouTube channels and do this stuff, because we have a literacy problem in America where there's not enough information out there. My channel is the most popular of all the disability attorneys, but that doesn't mean that there's not great other attorneys out there or other people that are non-attorneys. And literacy is so important. Education is so important. Let's get right back to this, though. Here's the deal. If you have a lot of impairments, mental or physical, if you have a lot of medications, right? Side effects, or you might need prompting to answers, prompting so that you can look at something and then answer it correctly. Because remember, when you do these hearings, you have to be alone and not recording. Once again, alone and not recording. So here's the deal. Here's where I stand on this. Most judges, okay, they're going to go ahead and ask you the question. And if you don't know the answer and you need prompting and you need bullet points and you need something to help you get through the tough questions, the timeline, right? You made a piece of paper, you put timeline details on it. Would it not be better for you to have these pieces of paper in front of you with your list? Where do you feel pain and 2 symptoms per each location? What are your medications and 2 side effects per each medication? When did each of your impairments start and when did each of them become severe? Would it not be better to have the advantage of having those pieces in front of you? Now, remember, you do an in-person hearing, a lot of the judges will not allow you to have paperwork in front of you. You do a video telephonic hearing, a lot of the judges will not allow you to read off of something. You do a telephonic hearing, they can't see your eyes. They can't see your face. So if you're not shaking something, reading off something, they're not going to know. So the reality here is, from a practical aspect, a trial tactic perspective, you get a massive advantage, an absolute massive. You get your cheat sheets. That's basically what it is. Most of you probably don't even go into a hearing with cheat sheets, and you didn't even realize the necessity of them, the how much they would have helped you answer things correctly. All right, here's what I'm getting at here. None of the judges, except one that I know of, will go ahead and restrict people when it comes to a telephonic hearing and them having a pause. Except there's one judge who's actually moving out of, and I'm not going to say the geographic area, but they're moving, who, if the person does not answer immediately, that judge will say, are you reading from something? Can you explain to me, are you reading from something? Do you have anything in front of you? You're not allowed to read anything during this hearing. There is one judge that does that. What I need you to know is that the advantage of having that paperwork in front of you far outweighs any advantage the judge could have to potentially see how disabled you are. Because, and there's only one caveat to that. There's only one caveat. Only go in front of the judge to get the advantage if your medical documentation does not fully outline what your impairments are. Because when you're in front of that judge and you say, Your Honor, would you like to see my shoulder where it's all broken and misfigured and yada yada, the judge will almost always say no. They're trained to say no because they have to go by what is in the record. And if you then pull your shirt over, your shoulder, the judge then will say, claimant has on the record showed me a, scar of approximately 4 inches directly over the line of their shoulders, down the side of their arm, on their, right arm, whatever. They'll outline specifically what it is. But that doesn't mean that that's the evidence they need to give you disability benefits. A pure physical inspection by a judge is not usually used for evidence because they're not doctors. All right. Now you get that. Now you're good. All right, let's go through the next thing. So if you are younger, there's another problem to doing video telephonic. If you're younger, there can be a prejudice at a human level for a younger person's face among the many, many older faces that the judge will usually see. And so the bottom line is, judges, just like everybody, have an internal expectation that a younger person, right, deep down, subconscious even, that a younger person could potentially work more than an older person. That's just how it works, right? We look at a younger person, our expectation. Look, let me make an extreme example. You see an 80-year-old. How likely is your brain saying, I wonder what job they're doing tomorrow? You see a 25-year-old. How likely is your brain's going to say, I wonder what job they're doing tomorrow? I bet it's this type of job, right? It's in us because that's how it works. That's how we've been bred. That's how society taught us to think. Okay. Now, another thing I want to point out real quick, if you do a video telephonic hearing, that's where they can see your face through the phone. Make sure you have an up-to-date phone. If you can't download and load the program successfully and easily, then don't risk hearing day getting, a program issue error where you just can't successfully log in, use the program, there's an audio issue, whatever. Don't risk it. If you have an older phone, do not risk it. Either do in person or telephonic without video, okay? You don't want to have to do a hearing and then have the judge say to you, we're going to have to reschedule and go ahead and wait 3 to 4 months to do another hearing. I mean, you could use that as a trial tactic to try and get more medical documentation, build your claim more, whatever. But, if you don't have a newer phone, don't use that option. Okay. So now, and here's my point with that. Everyone, has phones that can do the voice thing. Not everybody has phones that can do the voice video thing well. You could have your speaker not working that well from far away. You could have the video not be sharp enough. You could have the program, start and stop and start and stop. You want the judge to have a clean, direct, continuous hearing. You do not want the judge to have to stop the hearing 3 times because your phone has to reset the program and log back in. Okay. All right. Now, another thing. I want to go through this as well. If the judge asks you a question and you aren't sure which way to answer it, like, do you drive? And have you said that you can't drive in a prior document, right? Because that happens all the time. People will say one thing and then during the hearing, they'll be like, oh, well, maybe I can drive, right? But in the record, when they talked to the doctor or wrote something down on the SSA form, they're like, no, I can't drive anymore. Okay. So what I want you to remember with this is when you are sitting there in a video telephonic scenario, you have to be hyper aware of what is directly behind you. Okay. So if you have a window behind you and there sits the car that's registered to you, then the judge is going to be asking questions about, hey, do you currently pay insurance on a vehicle? Hey, do you currently have a driver's license? Hey, when was the last time you drove that car, the one in the image? If you do a video telephonic hearing, you have a blank wall behind you and a light in front of you pointing at you. That's it. Not a bunch of tchotchkes, not a bunch of stuff in the background, not a bunch of books that might offend the judge, not any of that stuff. No family pictures, no you on a boat pictures, none of that stuff. You have a blank wall and a light in front of you. Now, I want to say another thing. When you go ahead and basically do these prepping of the stage for the hearing, I need you to understand that not all of you, and many of you watching this video, will be able to go ahead and have a separate room that you can do this hearing in where you're not going to be bothered. Remember, you have to be alone and not recording. So the bottom line is this. If, for example, you don't have an extra room, which a lot of people fall into, you may need to use the bathroom, which is fine. I've had 2 claimants this week alone use their bathrooms, and that was their extra room to separate themselves from everybody else. That's fine. When you do this, be aware that you still need to prep the stage. Also, be aware, when you do in-person hearings, it is the most stressful. You're in a foreign place, in front of a foreign person, because that foreign person is an administrative law judge that you've never met before. You've just never met them before. So it's a new thing. You're in a new place. Now, we take away the new place thing. You just do a video telephonic hearing where the judge can see you, but you're in a familiar place. Less stress. Now let's take an additional one away. Now we take away the unfamiliar face. Now we take away the unfamiliar location. And now we just have you talking on the phone. The least stress. If you have mental impairment claimants, PTSD, if you have, basically, I had a claimant one time who had PTSD because essentially, they were attacked and beaten by a significant other that turned on them. And the judge looked like, to some degree, that person. Messed the hearing up. Totally threw the person off. All the training we did out the window. The point is, if you're one of those anxiety, depression, bipolar, oppositional defiance, PTSD, whatever, if you're one of those types of individuals who needs to be in a familiar place, around familiar people, least amount of stress, then do video telephonic. That's your best option. That's going to get you to answer questions the best way every time. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let's go on to the next thing here. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, this is an important one. This one bit me in the butt the other week. This one actually was very bad. All right, here's the deal. So basically what we had was a claimant who had in the record that they were prescribed a walker with a seat and a wheelchair. That person showed up to their hearing without either of them, both of them, right? They weren't present. That really hurt. And another one where there was a video telephonic where the claimant did not have them in the same room during the hearing, which is a little bit more forgivable because, moving from point A to point B, it's just a short distance. Maybe you can get away with it. Please, if you do a video telephonic hearing, in the background of your image somewhere, have present your walker with a seat, your wheelchair, your rollator, your crutches, your canes, whatever. Put them on screen. Okay. Next thing. All right. When it comes to sitting, standing, walking, the problem we have with the video telephonic hearings and the in-person hearings is that the judge can see specifically when you are changing positions in your chair, standing up, laying down. But with just a telephonic, no video hearing, the judge can't see those things. So in the brief, sometimes we would get responses where the judge would say, well, after reviewing the record and reviewing the video, we could see that the claimant did not change positions every 20 to 30 minutes. And as a result of this, we feel that they could do a sedentary job. They can't use that in a telephonic hearing where there's no video. Because if there's no video, the judge can't see when you stand up, when you sit down, when you lay down, or when you change positions, which means you have the advantage of not providing that extra sensory imaging to the judge. And remember, they wouldn't even normally give you the option of a telephonic hearing where it's only telephonic but for COVID, because it gives you a lot of significant advantages. Things that we as attorneys never even talked about as advantages until COVID happened and we had to relook at the whole thing. Okay. All right. Next thing. Topic number 3, telemedicine. Judges are giving this lesser weight. Okay. That's where you see your doctor through the phone. Lesser weight of evidence for both physical and mental reviews. Okay. Basically, you've got physical doctor appointments where, clearly they need to review your body in the present, where you're in front of that doctor. Mental reviews, they still give a lot of weight to, because, you can do a lot of mental review things through the phone. Here's the bottom line with this stuff. These telephonic medical visits are basically like, for example, kind of like a medication upkeep update, visit. It's not a super important medical visit. You're just doing a quick, here I am. These are the problems. Here's my update. What do you think? If you really want the most weight, the best bucks for your money when it comes to the judge giving the most weight of the evidence to that medical visit that you had, you got to be in person. You got to be in person. Okay. You have to keep in mind too, that when you just do these medical, medication, updates, these quick little, I did it through the phone thing when it comes to essentially, medication or medical review. What happens is it's showing the judge, especially if you do them repetitively, that you're not having any crisis situations and that your impairments are very well controlled. Crisis medical treatment is more important now than it's ever been. It wasn't a big deal until about 2018. 2017, it started. 2018, it became a thing where everybody was pushing for it. All the judges want to see it. Okay. So here's what you need to know with this situation. Okay. When it comes to, if you have fibromyalgia or you have COPD, those types of impairments, and your visits are telephonic, then it's almost certainly going to be more leaning towards a denial, because you're not having them do the test points on your body for the fibromyalgia. They're not having you do the breathe in tests and, basically give readings for the COPD. There are a lot of tests that have to be completed that are unique to each impairment. When you don't see the doctor in person, you are waiving your ability to go ahead and have those tests. Now, number 4. Politically, President Biden can't rely on claiming Republicans will really hurt Social Security benefits during the whole debt ceiling discussions, which haven't been fixed up to this point. The debt ceiling is still a massive, massive, massive problem. So expect more Democrats to go back to the idea of attacking just one particular Republican, being Rick Scott, for his 5-year review of federal programs plan. Okay. Or essentially what his plan was, every 5 years we review a federal program and we see if we need to change it out and do something different, do something new, which of course the Democrats took as, let's get rid of Social Security benefits and just, hey, at that point, you know, he's saying we'll go ahead and swap it out for a different program or review it to get rid of it. So I see where they're coming from with that. President Biden needs a bill right now. That's what he needs going into the next couple of months, where he will support, where he can launch ideas to get closer to that 2024-2025 election cycle. There are now articles coming out that put President Biden in a very negative light because of those things he's saying about the Republicans and what the Republicans have repeatedly stated that they're not going to do. However, at the same time, Republicans keep talking about, even though they're pulling back from it being a discussion with the debt ceiling, the idea of changing Social Security benefits, all the way up to Vice President Pence, who came out and said, we want to look at a lot of options, including the privatized version of Social Security benefits for younger generations. It wouldn't affect the older, but it would affect the younger generations. Okay. Now, here's the deal. If you are younger, there can be a prejudice. Here's the deal. Sorry, I just skipped the thing. When it comes to basically the future of Social Security benefits and President Biden, the problem that we're looking at is that nothing is realistically going to happen until the 2024 to 2025 presidential voting cycle begins. And the reason why we see that is that everybody is keeping their powder dry and relying on the same old tactics that they always use. Democrats say the Republicans are trying to end Social Security benefits. That's incorrect. Republicans say that the Democrats are not dealing with the problem, which means that the trust fund will go ahead and run dry between 2033 to 2035 for retirement benefits. This was outlined specifically on the most recent report that was released by the Social Security Administration through the Office of the Chief Actuary's estimates of proposals to change the Social Security program, or the SSI program. Specifically today, Bernie Sanders came out with, in conjunction with the SSA, and specifically Stephen Goss, who's the chief actuary on behalf of the SSA, an estimate of the financial effects on Social Security and the Social Security Expansion Act, which was introduced on February 13, 2023 by Senator Bernie Sanders, which, you know, if you're looking for like the most up-to-date what's happening with Social Security, it is the Social Security Expansion Act introduced by Bernie Sanders. We're going to do a whole video on that. Here's the bottom line of what you need to know. They keep pushing similar identities on the fixes that they've been promoting. These ideas were originally thought up and pushed by Biden, even some of them during his pre-White House website. The problem is Biden has not jumped on board with any of them, and he's keeping his powder dry because he knows in the not too distant future, he's going to need to use Social Security benefits to define whether or not he gets a second term. Okay. Now, with that said, and I need you to understand this, there's a lot of changes coming up. We have talked about them in a prior video, but now they're about to start to take effect. Number one big change is that the amount of people that will be applying for Social Security disability benefits is going to skyrocket. That's because over 150,000 tech industry personnel have been terminated. All those companies that went out of business during COVID, and military VA persons getting educated to file for civilian disability benefits are increasing the applicant load on processing time and fund usage. Point being, we need a plan. Okay. And these politicians don't really know the Social Security system well enough to innovate ideas, right? Because you've got to know the system so well that you can make up new ways to make it happen. And that only comes with massive knowledge and experience. 5, finally, the CDI and CDR investigations will continue to increase. Be smart about what you put online. Be smart about who your enemies are. And be smart about how to survive with little money that you make, right? The little bit that you get, be smart about how you spend it. Be smart about how you save it. I know most of you can't save it because there's hardly any benefits. A lot of people make money on the side. I get that. I'm not making an argument against it, okay? I know this. They know this. Just be aware that they are into the online sales programs that are on your phone, and be aware that they can look up your financials almost instantly. It takes like 30 seconds for them to pull up what cars and things are registered to your name. If you don't have a vehicle anymore, get it off your account, SSI people. Once again, if you have vehicles that are still sitting on your account, get them off your account. Call the DMV. Number 6, that is your Social Security news update for the upcoming month of March 2023. I'm the most viewed and subscribed to Disability Attorney online. I support the other channels that give updates that are both attorneys and non-attorneys. I'm excited about particular months coming up this year, but I can assure you the real wow months, the real big stuff is going to be happening in the latter part of 2024 as a result of the presidential election cycle. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll be back in about 5 minutes. The next video is actually really cool. I started to do a study on what types of prejudices exist within the Social Security system. I'll be back in 5 minutes. I'll catch you there. Thanks so much for watching. Please remember to like, subscribe, and leave 5-star reviews. Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye, guys. Bye-bye.